Hi, and welcome to another video in this Build With Me series. We're building this meter tall LED tower, and last time we got all of the segments, rings of LEDs glued and soldered into place. In this one we're going to explore a bit more of this bird's nest of wires and try and extract some wire from this in order to do the rest of the connections. So far we've only got one out of the 4 connections needed for each ring. So we need to add 3 wires from each ring that go down to the main circuit board. In the instructions, helpfully they've told you on the underneath of the LED rings which terminals are for which color. So we have the red, green and the blue. And then on the interconnect PCB, for each ring there's a section of red, green and then blue. And as you may be able to make out, if the screen resolution works well enough, these are all numbered. These correspond with the layers or the numbering of the rings as they rise up. And let me get you in a little bit closer to the actual circuit board. As you can see on the circuit board, these plated through holes are numbered, 1 all the way up to 16 in that top row, and then 17 coming across to 32 on this bottom row. These are the blue LED segments. And if I just turn this round, you can see similar but running in a different direction. At the back here we've got 1 starting on the left all the way over to 16 and then 17 through to 32. And then if I turn it over again, this one, this position is for the red. That previous one was the green. Well, in this one it's changed again. So we have, let's see, you can get number 1 all the way through on the bottom row through to 16 and then 17 to running back to 32. So a little bit of attention is going to be needed with doing this, because if you start and do solder in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 going across, by the time you get to do the back row, the upper half of this tower, it's going to be more difficult trying to get the wires into the holes, and obviously you'd have to solder them from underneath as well. It's going to be a bit of a faff. So for the reds, I'm going to start with the very top layer, 32, and work my way down. For the greens, green segments, I'll be starting at layer 1 and working my way up. And obviously, similarly for the blue, I'll be starting at the bottom with number 1, ring number 1, which is this first ring, which you can just see the edge of, and working my way up. So just a little potential trap there that hopefully we can avoid with a little bit of planning. So after a couple of days of hunting around to find the end of this wire again, I managed to untangle enough to be able to thread it down this whole section or tower. And I'm starting with number 32, which you may be able to make out, although it's probably upside down. And in order to hold the wire in place, I've come up with an ingenious plan. We shall see if it works. It's just to use a clothes peg, because otherwise this wire just springs back up and just grips it down there, and we can come along and solder it up from underneath. Just laid the tower down its side for this, just to make things a bit easier. That is number 32, so now we just need to get it up to the other end and fix it on there. So we've swapped the tower around so that we've got the top end, and this is our wire that we just soldered on at the other end. Of course, we're not going to pull it absolutely taut, we'll leave a bit of slack in there, and we're going to connect this in probably to this connection up here. Now this is the red segment, LED segment that we're wanting to connect to, and the red segment or LED connection is this first pin that's next to the fibre. So it's the red, then there's the common, and then there's the green, and then there's the blue. So this is the red. So what we'll do is we'll just take this and we'll just pull it out of this little hole, and then strip it off a tiny section. We don't need much. And then we can tin this, and we'll be able to cut this shorter as well. Sorry if the angle of this filming this isn't so good. The problem is that it's such a tall structure. I'm trying to find a space where we can work on it effectively and film it. It's very difficult. So hopefully I'm able to get some footage of doing this. I will try from some different angles. That's that tinned, and then we can trim this down. And to save my fingers, I'm just going to use the tweezers. Just like that. It is done. So now I'm going to repeat that. This particular sort of section of the tower is in line with the connection that we just soldered onto the interconnect board. So all of the connections for each of the rings for the red LED segments, I will bring up basically in line with this, and then the other colours, the green and the blue, will be brought up in line on the same side, hopefully keeping things a little bit tighter, because they're going to end up with about 90 odd, I think 96 wires coming up through the centre of this. So we'll try and keep some sort of tidiness if we can. We'll soon see. So it's just more of the same. This would be a very boring video if I filmed all of this. So I will probably film little segments and then edit together something that shows the way that I did this. So I've run a few wires down the centre of this tower, connecting them at both ends, and I found a couple of little hints that have made things a little bit easier for myself, and I just wanted to pass those along to anybody who's maybe wanting to build this themselves. The first one is that these wires are incredibly flexible and fine. Focus, there we go. And trying to push these down or push them up through the center of all these LED rings really is a non-starter. Takes it forever. I thought about threading the wire onto just a couple of nuts or something like that, just to weigh them down. But I found something that's even better. It's this little clip. It's about 20 millimeters wide. And it's just really easy just to pinch the very tip of the wire. As you can see, it's only just gripping it there. Then fold the two wings back in. And then what I do is I just drop this down the center of the tower. There you can see it dropping down. And then just with your tweezers, you can go in and fish it out through the side. It was taking me about 3 or 4 minutes to get the wire down previously, so this is much better. So another thing I've been doing is whenever you fish it out from the center for trimming down before you solder it onto the appropriate ring, I've been cutting all of these at the same length, or with the same amount of excess, and that is basically cutting it halfway between the ring it's going to solder to and the next ring up. So basically the halfway point. Just pulling it taut but without stretching, and then just clipping it off. And we can tin this. And that always shrinks some of the insulation down, so trim that down a little bit. Just get some fresh solder. Pop that in place. Now what you may be able to see on this particular camera shot, as you can see, I've just soldered in this wire here. I'm going to try and just move the camera so you can see that actually I've soldered in to here, and then to here, and to here. And as I move the camera, it should hopefully focus in. I got here, and here, and here, and here, here, up to here. So as you can see, I've kept all of these on the same LED or the same pin on each of the rings. And what that does is it really helps you to not get mixed up and accidentally miss out one. And it's just a handy, easy visual check that you've got each ring as you're working your way down, or alternatively on other ones as we'll be working our way up. So just another handy hint that I find helpful. So I'm partway through doing the second run of these cables. I just wanted to share with you what has been working for me. These ones are a bit more tricky to solder to the LED legs because this is for the green one, and so this is going to be in the middle rather than one of the outer legs. But what we have to do first of all we've got to tin the wire. Even though it is tinned, we make sure it's nice and fresh. So hopefully this is in focus for you. I've had to manually focus on this. And then we trim this down. We actually trim this down very, very short. So basically just enough, just over a millimeter, basically. That is how long that is. So this is the LED I'm going to solder to, and the green lead is this particular pin here. So it's the third along from this end. And as you can see, perhaps slightly blurred, this is the previous one that I've done. So as you can imagine, we have to be careful not to create a solder bridge. And also the reason for trimming that lead, that tinned copper so short, is that we don't want to leave a long tail which can very easily bend over. There will be some exposed copper, there's not much we can do about that. So just use an ordinary garden or home style clothes peg, really handy for hanging onto the wires. Then we have to sort of form this into a little bit of an S sort of a shape, so that it keeps our fingers out of the way, but we're still able to position it. Just got to clean my soldering iron and tin it. So and then we give it a little tug just to make sure it's there. And then later on, once we've done all of these, I'll go back over these with a magnifying glass just to make sure I haven't done any solder bridges. So we've managed to get all of our individual wires, 96 of them, soldered onto the board. Then I've threaded down from the very top of the tower the pair of wires that needed to come down, and here we have them just cropped out here. So we now come to almost the point of attaching these two boards together, and we can see here actually that there's a bit of a design flaw. Everything has got a socket on it except for the loudspeaker, these two red wires, and then the very top part of the tower, these two white ones. And these get soldered on to the main board here. This is a bit of an oversight. They could have made these through hole and put a couple of small sockets in so that the whole thing could be separated if necessary, but oh well, they haven't done that, so we just got to live with it. So what we're going to do now is just solder these into position. So in these little white ones, if you remember from ages ago, I tied the knot in the positive. Of course, these are already tinned, and then we can clip them down because these are not through holes, they're just surface mount pads on this main circuit board. These are already tinned, so we can trim these down a bit. Get rid of the trimmings off the circuit board, that would not end well. And then we can tin these pads. So these two over here are for the loudspeaker. We're told the speaker doesn't matter about polarity. can just offer up this into place. And that is that. And next up will be the very exciting prospect of actually trying to see if it works. This is going to be exciting. I shall put a little power meter on this, see how much it's going to draw. See if it runs off a power bank. Zoom you out. Turn off these lights. Drawing just about at 1 amp. Wow. I can't fit it all in the shot at the moment, but we can just move it down so you can see. I'm very pleased that that works. Very impressed. So in the next and final episode of this video, I'm going to tidy up all of these wires with some cable ties, just make it all nice and neat, and probably just demonstrate the different patterns that it can produce. If you've made it this far, well done. It's been a long project, this one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of this one or on the next video on a different project. Bye for now.